What happens when a CEO joins the worst shift in the company just to find out how broken it really is? Zayden Ellis stood by the loading dock behind Stadium 16, sweat already gathering on his lower back despite the morning chill. He wore steel-toed boots, a faded blue shirt with event services stitched on the chest, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. The beard helped 2 weeks of growing it out just for this. He'd bought the stadium cleaning contract company 6 years ago. Back then, it had only 4 locations. Now it was 16, stretched across 3 states. Profitable, but lately, complaints had started piling up: dirty seating sections, low morale, high turnover. He was tired of hearing filtered versions from his district managers. So here he was, Zeke, a new trainee on the cleanup crew assigned after last night's hockey game. "Let's go, rookies, clock in and shut up," the bark came from a tall woman in a gray windbreaker. Her name tag reads Supervisor, Carla. She didn't look at Zayden when he approached the time clock, just shoved a clipboard toward him. "Sign in. You miss 1 minute, you're docked an hour. I don't care if you're dying." A few of the other workers exchanged glances. One of them, a short guy with thick glasses and calloused hands, leaned over to whisper, "She says that every day, just nod and stay out of her way." "Thanks," Zayden said. "I'm Zeke. Name's Miguel. You'll be with me on upper tier rows." It's hell up there. By 7, they were already hauling trash bags down steep concrete steps. Popcorn, beer cans, nacho trays, layers of it. Zayden kept pace, gloves sticky, back aching. Miguel moved with quiet efficiency, wiping seats, collecting garbage, tying bags with practiced speed. "Hey," Zayden panted, "how long you been here?" 2 years, Miguel said. "I work part-time at a warehouse too. This job doesn't pay enough on its own." They reached the top tier by break time. Zayden wiped his brow and reached for the water bottle in his cargo pocket, empty. He looked around. "Where's the water station?" Miguel hesitated. "We used to have one on each floor. Carla removed most of them last year, said it slowed folks down." Zayden blinked. "What?" "She says you want water, bring your own, or wait till shift ends." Zayden's mouth was dry. He checked his watch. 3 more hours. Just then, a younger woman in a faded hoodie, maybe 19, 20, sat down on the steps, clutching her stomach. "Hey, you okay?" Zayden asked, kneeling beside her. "Just dizzy," she whispered. "I haven't had water since yesterday." "I forgot to bring some." Before he could answer, Carla's voice rang out. "Get up, Dakota, no sitting during shift." "She's not feeling well," Zayden said, standing. "I don't care," Carla snapped. "She can feel sick on her own time. You're not paid to babysit." Zayden clenched his jaw. "She needs water." Carla stepped closer. "You knew, then listen up. We don't waste time with weaklings here. She wants water. She should have brought it." "Got it." Miguel moved to help Dakota up. "She hasn't complained once. She's been working hard." Carla turned. "You want to join her on the bench, Miguel, or maybe I dock your hours again like last week?" Miguel froze. Zayden's fists tightened at his sides, his heart pounded. He'd seen enough. But not yet. Not without understanding just how deep this ran, so he said nothing. Just nodded and helped Dakota to her feet. Later, during lunch, Zayden sat in the loading dock watching the crew. Dakota was eating quietly, sipping from a water bottle Miguel had given her. "Why don't people report Carla?" Zayden asked Miguel. "They do," Miguel replied. "But nothing ever changes. District manager only shows up once a month. Carla's got her fooled, says we're lazy and lie to get time off." Zayden looked out at the crew, tired, sweating, silent. He'd bought this company because he believed in giving people chances, and he'd failed them. But not anymore. Tomorrow he'd be back, and he'd start shaking the foundation. From the inside. The next morning, Zayden arrived earlier than anyone else. The upper tier reeked faintly of stale beer and disinfectant, lit by the dull glow of industrial lights flickering awake. He stood alone in the silence for a few minutes, watching condensation bead on the plastic seats. Miguel showed up next, this time with an old travel mug in one hand and a small carton of cut fruit in the other. He gave Zayden a quiet nod and sat 2 rows down to eat. "Where's Dakota?" Zayden asked without looking over. Miguel chewed slowly before answering. "Didn't come in. Carla marked her absent without cause. That's an automatic write-up. You serious? She texted me last night, said she had a fever and didn't want to push it. But with that write-up, 2 more and she's out. Zayden's jaw tensed. That's not how sick days are supposed to work. Miguel shrugged, eyes fixed on the field far below. Policy says you need a doctor's note. Problem is, most of us don't have insurance through the company. So people either show up sick or get punished. Zayden wasn't sure what made him angrier, the policy itself or the fact that he hadn't known it was being enforced this way. As the rest of the crew trickled in, Zayden counted heads. 14 total. They should have had at least 20. No substitutes. No floaters. Carla arrived last, holding a clipboard and a half-eaten granola bar. She glanced at the crew without saying anything, then called out names, skipping over any greetings. Dakota's out, she said flatly. That means you'll all pick up her section, don't complain. There's work to do. Shouldn't we split it between the 2 shifts? Asked a tall man named Reggie, who was usually quiet. Carla didn't even look up. You want to negotiate or you want to keep working here? The silence that followed was immediate and absolute. Zayden worked side by side with Miguel again, this time tackling the lower bowl. The seats were closer together and full of sticky residue from soft drinks. Miguel handed him a scraper for the dried gum stuck under the armrests. Do you ever get any kind of performance reviews? Zayden asked while working. Miguel shook his head without pausing. Not unless someone complains, then it's just a form letter in your file. No raises, no feedback. No raises, Carla says we're all paid the same, so there's no point. I've been here 2 years, still making the same as day 1. Zayden paused for half a second, then kept scraping. That doesn't make sense. I mean, there's no incentive to do better. Miguel gave a soft huff. Exactly. Halfway through the shift, Zayden noticed Carla had disappeared. He asked around quietly. No one had seen her for over an hour. A few workers looked relieved, others just tired. He found her eventually, sitting inside the maintenance storage room with a space heater on, scrolling through her phone. She didn't see him watching from the doorway. Back in the stands, Reggie pulled a muscle, lifting a full trash bin. He winced and dropped it halfway down the aisle. You good? Zayden asked, stepping in to help. Yeah, Reggie muttered. Just tweak something, I'll walk it off. But he didn't. 10 minutes later, he was limping. Zayden took matters into his own hands, moving the full bins himself while Reggie tried to stay on his feet. A few other crew members quietly followed suit, working faster to give him breathing room. When Carla finally returned, she didn't ask about the injury. She didn't even notice. Instead, she shouted from the mezzanine. Who left the trash bags on the 3rd row? That's not protocol, Reggie flinched. That was me. I was going to come back for it. You leave bags lying around, you're costing us penalties. You want to explain that to the district manager? Zayden stepped forward, wiping his hands on his pants. He pulled a muscle. He shouldn't even be carrying bags right now. Carla gave him a long look. And you are, Zeke, I'm covering the west section. Then stick to it. You're not in charge. Zayden's eyes didn't move. Nobody said I was, but someone's got to pay attention. Carla turned on her heel and walked away without replying. By the end of the shift, Zayden's shirt clung to his back and his arms felt like cement. He walked with Miguel toward the back exit, where they usually left through the staff corridor. I heard Carla talking to someone on the phone earlier, Miguel said quietly. She was bragging about how she cut payroll again this week. Said she could do it all with fewer people if she pushed hard enough. Zayden nodded once, jaw set. How often does she do that? Miguel didn't answer right away. Honestly, every other week she justifies it by saying we're overstaffed, but we're not. She just wants to hit her bonus. As they turned the corner, Zayden caught sight of something that stopped him cold. Behind the supply cage, near the mop sinks, 2 workers were huddled against the wall. One of them, a woman in her 40s with streaks of gray in her hair, was holding her wrist. The other, a young man barely out of high school, was wrapping it in a rag torn from his own shirt. She slipped, he said quietly as Zayden approached. Stairs were wet. We told Carla. She said to mop it up when we were done. The woman winced as the boy tightened the makeshift wrap. She kept saying finish your section first, like I wasn't bleeding. Zayden didn't respond. He just helped the woman stand carefully, then turned to Miguel. Get her to urgent care, I'll cover for both of you. Miguel didn't argue. Zayden waited until the crew had cleared out and Carla returned to the office, then walked in after her. She was at her desk, typing something on her laptop. He shut the door behind him. How long have you been doing this? He asked. She looked up, annoyed. Doing what? Overloading shifts. Ignoring injuries, denying water, threatening write-ups for being sick. She leaned back. What are you, HR now? No, Zayden said evenly. I'm the owner. Carla blinked, confused for half a second, then her expression collapsed into something caught between disbelief and panic. Your weight. What? Zayden Ellis. I started this company, and I've spent the last 2 days watching you run one of its largest contracts like a sweatshop. She stood up, hands raised slightly. Look, I was just trying to meet targets. You know how tight margins are. You falsified attendance records, discouraged sick workers from resting, ignored injuries, and undermined morale to pad your own performance bonuses. That's not managing, that's abuse. Carla opened her mouth, but nothing came out. You're done, Zayden said. Effective immediately. Security will escort you out. She stared at him like she couldn't quite believe it. You can't just fire me without I can, and I just did. He walked past her and opened the office door. One of the stadium's security guards stood nearby, alerted by text. Zayden nodded. The guard stepped forward. Carla didn't speak again. Outside, the crew was gathering their things. Zayden stepped up onto one of the benches and raised his voice. Some of you know me as Zeke, he said. My real name is Zayden Ellis. I own this company. Heads turned. Miguel froze mid-step. Reggie straightened up. No one spoke. I came here because I wasn't getting the truth, and what I've seen the past 2 days, he paused. It's unacceptable. He looked around at the faces, tired, cautious, unsure. Carla is no longer with the company. Starting tomorrow, a new supervisor will be brought in. One who understands that people are not numbers, still silence. And before that happens, I want to hear from every one of you. We're scheduling private conversations this week, paid time for you to tell us what's broken and what you need to succeed here. Miguel stepped forward. You really mean that? Zayden nodded. I do, and I'm sorry it took this long. For the first time in 2 days, the crew didn't look beaten down. They looked awake and cautiously hopeful it would take time to fix the damage. But this was the first step, and Zayden wasn't going anywhere. The following morning, Zayden arrived just before 6. He parked in the far lot again, wearing the same worn boots and blue work shirt, but now without the need to hide behind the name Zeke. He walked through the side gate with purpose, nodding to each crew member as they arrived. Some stared. Others offered guarded nods. A few avoided eye contact altogether, unsure what today would bring. Miguel approached with a clipboard and a subtle limp. You're early, he said, voice low. So are you, Zayden replied. Miguel looked down at the clipboard. They didn't assign a new supervisor yet. No one told us who to report to. They will. But until then, I'll be directing the shift. Miguel raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? It's not permanent, Zayden said, scanning the lot as more workers filtered in. We're interviewing replacements. But I'm not leaving this crew to figure things out alone. He walked toward the service entrance where the crew usually waited for assignments. Reggie stood near the door, stretching his arm carefully. The older woman who had injured her wrist was absent. Zayden made a mental note to follow up on her. When everyone had gathered, he stepped up onto the ledge just outside the utility room. Morning, he said, loud enough to reach everyone. We've got a lot to cover and I'm not going to waste your time. Here's how today works. He pointed to a whiteboard leaning against the wall. We're splitting into 3 focused teams, seating, sanitation, waste removal, and high-contact surfaces. Each team has a lead. You'll report issues directly to them, no gatekeeping. A few heads turned toward each other. No one had heard that word used in their context before. I'll be working with the surface team today. If there's a problem, bring it to me directly. If you need a break for water, take one. No questions asked. And if anyone's not okay with that, now's the time to speak. Silence. Miguel read the names off the list, assigning groups. There were still gaps in coverage, but less than yesterday. 2 floaters had been brought in from another stadium, covering the sections Dakota and the injured woman usually handled. The work started slower than usual. Everyone moved cautiously, unsure how much had really changed. But Zayden noticed something within the first hour. People weren't looking over their shoulders anymore. On the concourse level, Zayden joined 2 younger workers cleaning the handrails and stair edges. One of them, a lanky guy with a sun-faded bandana tied over his head, worked with quick, quiet precision. "What's your name?" Zayden asked, wiping down a railing beside him. "Deshawn," the guy said without looking up. "You've been here long, since February. I do night shifts sometimes too." "Whatever they offer," Zayden nodded. "You always work that fast," Deshawn shrugged. "If I don't, I get told I'm slacking. If I do, I get told I'm showing off, so I just work like no one's watching." "You ever get feedback, recognition?" Deshawn stopped wiping. "I got a write-up once. For using too many wipes, said I was wasting supplies." Zayden stared at him. "That's what they wrote you up for?" "Yeah, Carla said if I kept going through boxes like that, I might as well be setting money on fire." Zayden didn't reply. He kept wiping the railing until they reached the next section, then signaled for a lunch break. They gathered near the far concession stand, where a catering table had been brought in fruit, bottled water, sandwiches, and electrolyte drinks. It wasn't extravagant, but it was enough. Miguel stood by the table, arms crossed, watching the crew slowly gather and eat. "You think they believe this'll last?" Zayden asked him. "Some do. Some are waiting for the rug to get pulled again. Can't blame them." Miguel shook his head. "Carla made sure no one trusted anything above her. She'd tell us every week the company didn't care, that we were lucky to even have jobs." Zayden looked out over the field from the mezzanine window. "That ends today." After lunch, he circled back to the maintenance corridor where the storage room still held Carla's old desk and paperwork. He started sorting through the folders and binders. Most were routine schedules, supply orders, and inspection reports. But then he found a locked drawer. He forced it open with a flathead screwdriver from the tool wall. Inside were handwritten notes, some dating back over a year. A pattern emerged. Carla had been reducing staff on event nights, logging false coverage numbers, and submitting inflated cleaning times to justify bonus productivity pay. She'd even signed off on forms that listed workers who hadn't been scheduled at all. Zayden took photos of every page. This wasn't just bad management, it bordered on fraud. He left the office and went straight to the stadium's operations director upstairs. The man, sharply dressed and visibly uncomfortable when Zayden explained everything, agreed to cooperate fully with the internal audit. By late afternoon, Zayden returned to the floor. The crew was wrapping up, sweat-streaked but steady. The difference wasn't dramatic, but it was visible in how they moved. No one flinched when he walked by. No one avoided his gaze. Reggie finished his section and sat on a step, stretching his back carefully. "You doing all right?" Zayden asked. "I'll manage. Just glad no one's barking at me for slowing down." "Take a lighter section tomorrow." Reggie nodded once. "Appreciate it." As they packed up, Zayden gathered the crew again. "Tomorrow, we're bringing in a field HR rep," he said. "She'll be available for private conversations. No supervisors present. Nothing gets filtered. You speak, we listen." Someone near the back, a woman with a paint-stained ball cap, raised her hand. "What happens if we want to stay but can't afford to keep working 2 jobs to do it?" Zayden met her eyes. "We're reviewing every pay structure this month, starting with this site. I won't make promises until the numbers are in, but I'll say this. The goal is to make this a job you don't have to escape from." A few murmurs passed through the group. Not applause, not disbelief, just the beginning of something new. Zayden stepped down and walked with Miguel toward the loading dock. "You're going to need someone steady to help transition this crew," Zayden said. "Someone who already has their trust." Miguel looked over. "You're thanking me, you've got the respect. And the understanding." Miguel exhaled slowly. I never wanted to be in charge, but I wanted things to be fair. Then you're halfway there. Think about it. As the sun dipped low behind the stadium, the last of the crew filed out. No shouting, no threats, just tired feet and small nods. Zayden stayed behind, standing alone in the empty stands. He looked across the rows of scrubbed seats and clean aisles. It wasn't fixed. Not yet. But it was finally honest. By the end of that week, Zayden had returned to the stadium every morning, no longer undercover, no longer just observing. The crew still started early and ended sore, but the tone had shifted. Water stations had been reinstalled quietly at first, then formally approved by operations. A small gesture, but one that had an immediate ripple. Workers no longer checked the clock before taking a sip or hesitated before stretching sore backs. The HR representative, a sharp-eyed woman named Layla, had conducted one-on-one sessions in a private trailer tucked beside the staff parking lot. Every crew member was given 20 minutes of paid time to speak. No one was rushed. Some used the full time, some stayed longer. No one left unchanged. Zayden reviewed the session summaries behind closed doors with Layla and the regional director. He read every note line by line. Some were straightforward, calls for better equipment, clearer scheduling. Others carried weight that stayed with him long after he left the office. More than one worker described being punished for speaking up. One had been forced to scrub a vomit-stained stairwell alone after pointing out a broken mop handle. Another was docked a full day's pay after missing a shift to attend a family funeral despite giving notice. Zayden sat in silence as the last transcript was read. "We've got a culture problem," he said finally. Layla nodded. "And not just here. Carla's practices wouldn't have survived if they weren't tolerated upstream." The regional director shifted in his seat. "I'll take responsibility for missing it, but I'll also say no one ever reported these things through formal channels." "They didn't trust the channels," Zayden replied, "because people like Carla made sure they didn't." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. On Monday morning, he called a full staff meeting in the main concourse. It was the first time the entire stadium crew had been gathered at once without being ordered to clean something. Zayden stood in front of them, flanked by Layla and the newly appointed site supervisor, a soft-spoken former lead from another location named Terrence. Terrence had spent the past week shadowing every crew quadrant. He hadn't said much yet, but he had listened. Zayden waited for the murmurs to settle, then spoke without a mic. "I'm not going to give you a speech," he said. "You've already heard enough of those. What I'll give you is clarity." He gestured to Terrence. "This is your new supervisor. He's not here to micromanage, he's here to lead. And if he doesn't, you come to me directly." He scanned the crowd, meeting eyes deliberately. "Second, effective immediately, we are implementing a tiered pay scale. Experience and performance will be reflected in your paychecks. No more flat rates, no more excuses." A few workers straightened. Others blinked, unsure they'd heard right. Third, injuries, illnesses, and emergencies are not punishable. We are expanding sick leave coverage and formally recognizing injury time as protected. No more write-ups for being human. He paused, then continued. Finally, we're launching a new reporting structure. Anonymous, unfiltered, and reviewed weekly by a rotating committee of employees and HR, you'll have a voice, and it will count. A long silence followed, not skeptical, just stunned. Then Deshawn, who had always kept to himself, stepped forward from the second row. "What happens if someone pulls another Carla?" he asked. "Someone who hides it better." Zayden didn't hesitate. "They're gone. No warnings, no negotiations. This company has zero tolerance for abuse, verbal, physical, discriminatory. If you see it, report it. If you're not sure, report it anyway. I'd rather investigate 100 false alarms than miss one real one." Miguel stepped forward next. "And if someone speaks up?" "They don't get punished. They get protected," Zayden said. "No retaliation, ever." He stepped down from the ledge and into the group. "That's it," he said. "Nothing rehearsed, nothing polished, just the truth." People didn't clap, they didn't cheer. That wasn't the kind of crew they were. But they held still, watching him, weighing his words. And slowly, heads began to nod. The shift started late that day. That had been planned. Zayden stayed behind with Terrence, reviewing the new equipment orders. He didn't speak much as they walked through the storage corridors. Instead, he watched Terrence take inventory, check expiration dates, and ask the supply clerk about reorder cycles. Later in the loading dock, Zayden found Miguel and Reggie loading fresh mop heads into carts. "Terrence treating people right?" Zayden asked. Miguel didn't look up from the bin. "He doesn't say much, but he listens. That's more than we had before." Reggie added, "He asked me this morning if I wanted to switch to lighter duty for a couple weeks, said the system flagged my last injury." Zayden nodded. "The new scheduling software auto-adjusts now. Based on health reports and shift history." Reggie raised an eyebrow. "That's real, not just something on paper. It's real," Zayden said, "and it stays real, as long as I'm here." By the end of the week, 2 more injured workers had been reassigned to lighter duties with no pay cut. Dakota returned, thinner but steady, and was welcomed back with quiet nods and space to catch up. No one asked why she'd missed time. No one had to. Zayden visited other sites over the next few weeks, unannounced. Not undercover, but unannounced. He walked floors, asked questions, listened. At 2 locations, he found early signs of the same issues that had festered under Carla. One manager was reassigned with warnings. The other was terminated on the spot for retaliating against a worker who had requested family leave. The message traveled fast. 3 months later, Zayden returned to Stadium 16 for a routine check-in. He didn't wear his work shirt this time, just jeans and a jacket. He walked the concourse alone, noting the cleaner aisles, the stocked supply carts, the posted emergency contact sheet next to the clock in terminal. He spotted Terrence walking with Deshawn, going over a new chemical dilution guide. "Too strong last batch?" Terrence asked. "Yeah," Deshawn said, pointing to a bottle. "Burned my hands a little. Log it. I'll adjust the ratios." They walked on. Zayden didn't interrupt. Instead, he climbed to the top tier and sat in the same seat where Dakota had nearly passed out months ago. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and cold steel. The sun was rising through the upper gaps in the structure, casting long lines across the rows. He sat there for a little while, watching the crew move below, quiet, coordinated, unhurried but focused. It was still hard work, still rough hours. But it was honest work again. And for the first time in too long, it looked like people knew they mattered. Zayden stood, stretched his legs, and made his way back down. He had a meeting in 30 minutes something about expanding the new policies company-wide. But for now, he just walked the length of the stadium, hands in his pockets, passing workers who no longer looked through him.